Hey everybody, it's another day. Just gonna wait a few minutes for folks to come on. Well, I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I am overcoming fear, control, and food addiction, and my name is Cheryl. It's so good to see you all. Hey Greg, I see you online, and Alan, I miss you, man. So good to be here tonight. I have really been praying about what I'm going to share today, and I can't wait to share what I feel like God has given me. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about the summit and share how excited I am about what's going to take place on July 30th and 31st, which is not very long from now. It's not very long from now. So I'm really excited about us coming together virtually and sharing messages virtually, learning together virtually, and going to another place in our recovery, in the Spirit, in our walks with Christ together. I'm grateful that we have this amazing opportunity, and I just want to take a moment to say thank you to Pastors John and Cheryl Baker, and to Mac and Mary, and to Rodney and Carol and Johnny and Jenny. Thank you guys for giving your lives to such an amazing process where we can all not just hope for freedom, but experience and walk towards freedom in Christ. And we get to do it with a forever family. I'm so excited about that. And I also want to shout out to Marnie, who is the beast behind the scenes. Marnie, you are amazing, and we all love you so much, and one day we're going to get you on camera. So I want to talk a little bit about the online summit. It is July 30th and 31st. You can get information online at crsummits.com. Again, crsummits.com. And this year we're pivoting to the first ever online summit, which I'm really excited about. And we're bringing worship, inspiration, and resource for healing right to your home or to your gathering place. And so don't miss out on participating in the summit with us. And some of us are used to either going to Tennessee or going to California and being together in person, but this year's a little different. And just because it's different doesn't mean that it's not going to be good. Doesn't mean that it's not going to be anointed. It doesn't mean that you're not going to walk away with the tools that you need to live the life that God has called you to live, which is, again, freedom, which is one of my favorite words. So if you're coming to the summit, I would love for you to type in the feed, "I'm coming." Are you coming? Even if you haven't purchased your ticket, whether you've purchased your ticket or not, type in the feed, "I'm coming." We want to know that you're going to be there with us. John Townsend is one of my favorite authors. He's an amazing man. He's going to be participating in the summit with us. He has either written or co-written over 30 books. He's a coach, he's a business consultant, and has a word for us. And for him to take time to participate in our summits is a win for all of us. And then there's Hosanna Poetry. You guys, she is one of my favorite people in the world. I have a question for you. Do you have a favorite piece that she's done? If you remember her from the past, or if you've seen her somewhere else, is there something that she's performed or ministered that spirit? Put that in the feed. We'd love to hear what that is. And then again, you guys, the Skit Guys. There is no one funnier than the Skit Guys, and they're going to join us as well, and along with a host of other speakers who are absolutely amazing. If you speak Spanish, we will have Spanish subtitles available. And then we're also working on providing Portuguese subtitles as well. And if you're interested, or you know anybody that would be interested in the Portuguese subtitles, we need to know that pretty quickly so that we can work on making that available for you. So if you need Portuguese subtitles, make sure that you let us know, and we'll make sure that if enough people request it, then we'll make sure that it's available for you. I am thrilled that we're going to have a summit that is going to be worldwide. This is not something that's just happening in Tennessee or just happening in California. It's going to be worldwide, and I'm thrilled that we get to participate in a global summit. Again, you can register through July 31st, and the summit will be available 1 week after the summit. So if you happen to miss a portion, if you have to work, or if you're unable to watch it live with us, which is what we want you to do, please know that you'll be able to go back and either rewatch or participate with your Forever family through a week after the summit is over. If you purchase 5 tickets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, your 6th ticket is free. And so we want to make sure that you get that 6th ticket. We need to know about that by July 17th by midnight. You need to make sure we know who that person is, and you need to purchase your 5 tickets by July 17th. So make sure that you've taken care of that, and we have the information you need on that 6th ticket so that that person can attend Summit with you. What else do I have to share with you? I think that's all I have. I really want to reiterate that you can join us live, and we'd love for you to join us live. We're going to all be online and sharing that whole experience together, and we'd love for you to be there, and if not, no problem. If you have questions about the summit, if you have questions about your Celebrate Recovery and how you're meeting right now and what you need to do while we're sort of sheltering in place, I know some places are reopening, please put those questions in the comments. We have our ministry leaders, state reps, RDs, national team, we're all online, and we'd love to answer any questions you might have regarding Summit or Celebrate Recovery, anything. And then if you have a prayer request, we would love to pray for you. We believe that we're in this together, and we know that life is difficult, and we just want to stand with you and go before the Father with you. So if you have a prayer, put that prayer in the feed, and we'll pray for you. If you have a praise report, we'd love to hear about that as well. Let's put those in there as well. So I have a couple of questions for you tonight. How do you connect with God? How do you connect with God? How do you connect with others? And how do you connect with your circumstances? How do you connect with God? How do you connect with others? And how do you connect with your circumstances? You know, communication is simply an exchange of information. And from the beginning of time, connections or communication have been a vital part of human development. God created man and woman so he could connect with us, and so that we could connect with each other. In Acts chapter 17, it says this: from one man, Adam, he made every man and woman and every race of humanity, and he spread us all over the earth. He set boundaries of people and nations, determining their appointed times in history. I love that. He set the boundaries of people and nations, determining their appointed times in history. This is your appointed time in history. He's done this so every person would long for God, feel their way towards him, that we would long for him, that we would feel our way toward him, and that we would find him. For he is the God who is easy to discover. Isn't that beautiful? You see, we're hardwired for connection with God. He created us so that we can communicate and cultivate relationship with him. Psalm 139, 1-3 says, Lord, you know everything there is to know about me. You perceive every movement of my heart and soul, and you understand my every thought before it enters my mind. You are so intimately aware of me, Lord. You see, in Genesis 1:27, it says he created us in his image. And because we're created in his likeness, because we're like him, he knows everything about us. He knows how we move. He knows how we think. He knows our proclivities. He knows the things that we don't want him to know about us. He knows. And yet he loves us anyways, because we're created for connection. And then Genesis 2 says that it was not good for man to be alone, so he created us so that we can have connections with one another. And Ephesians, it says, with gentleness and patience, we're to bear one another in love. Ephesians goes on to say that we were created to do good works together for him. We're created for connection with God. We're created for connection with each other. We're also created to connect with our circumstances. Understanding how we connect is vital to understanding our relationships with God, with others, and our circumstances. If we don't understand how we connect or communicate, life can be confusing or damaging. So how do we build relationships in order to connect? We get to know God better by spending time with him, worshiping and spending time with one another. We cultivate relationships with each other by talking on the phone, by texting or email or Zooming these days. Y'all, can we just take a minute and talk about Zoom? I love Zooming. I love connecting, but I'm just about zoomed out. I'm ready to meet in person, but I'm grateful for it, and it builds relationship. We connect each other by doing similar activities together. A significant way in which we connect is by relaxing with another person, by relaxing with another event, with an event or another thing. We form connections and ultimately strong attachments to people, events, or things that consistently allow us to relax. So when I say relax, I don't mean sitting on the couch watching Netflix, although that's not a bad thing. But let me illustrate. Imagine being in a relationship with me. And I ask you, I bring you to me and I bring a rock and I say, hold this rock. And you take this rock because we're in relationship and you trust me. And then I say, you know what? Don't just take this rock, but hold it above your head. And I tell you, don't let that rock down. Don't put that rock down until I tell you. And because we're in relationship, you trust me, you're going to hold that rock up until I tell you to put it down. But then I walk away and you don't know when I'm coming back or when I'm going to check on you or if I'm going to even find out how you're doing. And then when I come back, I have another rock and I say, you know what? Hold this rock as well. Put this rock on top of that next rock and hold it. Think about what you're walking through or thinking in that moment. You're probably sweating. Your arms are probably tired. You're probably thinking, who does she think she is? Where'd she go? Is she coming back? When can I put my hands down? When can I release these rocks? But you keep holding them because you trust me. We're in relationship and you're uncomfortable. You want to put the rock down. And you might be thinking of ways to relieve the tension, but instead you stand there holding the rock. Finally, I return and I remove the rock and I say, you know what? You can put your arms down. So once your arms are lowered and the rocks are removed, the physical tension is gone and the relief is dramatic. This is what I mean by relaxation. That tension is gone. Let's take the scenario one step further. If this activity is repeated time after time, several times, most likely the amount of tension you felt would decrease because you know I'm eventually coming back and I'm going to remove the rock and allow you to drop your arms. Attachment develops by way of repetition. Think about our hang-ups. Think about our habits. Think about our addictions. Attachments develop by way of repetition. When the same tension relaxation pattern recurs multiple times in our lives, we tend to gravitate toward the thing, the activity, or the person that relieved the tension or allowed us to relax. Our connections with our parents or our caregivers, they begin to mold our view of the world. Our experiences as children don't always support the truth that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. Sometimes it's the exact opposite. Excuse me, part of my testimony is that I was secure as a little girl. I thought my sister is sitting right here, and let me tell you, I thought the whole world revolved around me. Can I get an amen? I did. I thought I was everybody's favorite.
You are.
She says I am. I thought that I was the bee's knees until my parents divorced. Now, I can pinpoint the moment in time when things changed for me. And I remember my mom calling us to the room and saying, my dad wants to talk to you. Your father wants to talk to you. And he began to tell us that he was leaving and that he wasn't going to live in our home anymore. And I remember the pain. I don't remember a lot from my childhood, but I remember the pain that my heart experienced at that moment. And the things in my mind, the thought about myself being everybody's everything, changed in that moment. And I began to think and say to myself, you're not enough. You're never going to be enough. You're no good. Nobody wants you. People are going to love you and leave you. People aren't going to want you around. Looking back at the rock, if you will, that rock was placed in my hand at that moment. The moment my mother called me in the room, the moment I sat on one leg, my sister sat on another leg, my two brothers were on the side, I was handed a rock. And the tension was relieved when I saw my father. But when he didn't show up, it was like me holding that rock above my head. 2 rocks, 3 rocks, 4 rocks, a weight that I wasn't designed to carry. A weight that was too heavy for me. You know, repetition of the same thought or action can become a habit, and it can be detrimental. The truth is, about our thoughts, is we can change our thoughts, and our thoughts change our actions. You see, as children, we have needs, physical, emotional, and spiritual, that should be met by those around us. Having a need causes a variable degree of stress, but when the need is met, the child relaxes. When the need is met, when that rock is removed, relaxation takes place. As this same pattern happens over and over again, which is repetition, an attachment develops to the person or method by which the need is met. These initial attachments are the foundations for relationships both in childhood and in adulthood. If an infant cries because they're hungry and the parent feeds the child's need is met, and they learn to attach to that parent. This becomes a pattern. The child becomes attached to the parent because they meet an essential need. Over time, this basic attachment develops into trust and affection, and a healthy relationship is formed. Of course, we all know that we live in a fallen world, right? A child's needs aren't always met. They don't always get met in healthy ways. Sometimes they get met in unhealthy ways. In such cases, the same pattern applies. But instead of healthy attachments happening or taking place, unhealthy attachments or relationships develop. This often results in destructive behaviors and choices as the child grows into adulthood. Now, we're all in recovery. So let's think about our lives for a moment, and let's think about some of the hurts, habits, and hang-ups that we used to have, and how we walked into a situation where we've developed a thought that became a hurt or a habit, and then it became a habit, and then it became an addiction. I said that wrong. Our thought became a hang-up, the hang-up became a habit, and that habit may have become an addiction because of unhealthy attachments. The beautiful thing here is we have a Savior that went to die on the cross for us, that can change our thoughts, give us the power to change our thoughts, which affects our behaviors, and will obliterate those addictions, those habits forever.
That's good.
Forever, with a thought. Not every childhood pattern fits into one category. Our attachments and ultimately our relationships as children are developed out of hundreds of the same responses to our needs over time. Many of us grow up with more than one type of attachment and may find one pattern takes dominance over another, or we might find ourselves conflicted in our own responses to situations. Also, we may often grow up with a distinct pattern, and that pattern might suddenly change on us. Looking at the patterns in your childhood is a simple tool to help us gain insight to our own struggles and relationships. So I have a question for you about your childhood. How did you respond to what you needed as a child? What was your response? Or how were your needs met when you were younger? No need to put that in the feed. That's just for you to think about. Again, looking at the patterns in our childhood is simply a tool that will help us gain insight to our own struggles and relationships. And it serves as a springboard to improve how we communicate with God, how we communicate with others, and our circumstances. We cannot and should not put our childhood experiences into a box that doesn't conform to unique circumstances and situations. God works in the most unfortunate of upbringings and brings us through them, doesn't he? He's so good. He's so good. When I think about who I could have become because of the way I thought, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that my issue is food. It could be worse. My testimony could be so different. I'm grateful. This is just one step in allowing God to heal our wounds of the past and learning to enjoy healthy relationships today and moving forward. And just because you learned certain ways of responding to God, others, and your circumstances during your childhood doesn't mean that you're bound to that behavior. As an adult, you may have an attachment to a behavior that you would like to change. You're not bound to that attachment. Or you might have an addiction to an unhealthy habit that causes you to relax. You're not bound to that addiction. Listen, our story does not end here. There's freedom on the other side of our pain. 2 Corinthians 10:3-5 says, we're human, we are human, but we don't wage war as humans. We are human, but we don't wage war as humans do. We use God's mighty weapons, not worldly weapons, to knock down the strongholds of human reasoning and destroy false arguments. We destroy every proud obstacle that keeps people from knowing God. We capture the rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey Christ. This is how we renew our mind. We capture rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey Christ. And after you've become fully obedient, he will punish everyone who remains disobedient. And listen to Romans 12:1-2. And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living sacrifice and holy, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way we worship him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you'll learn to know God's will for you, which is good, pleasing, and perfect. Isn't that good? So at our upcoming summit, I'm going to share a way for you a process that will teach you to renew your mind in order to cultivate healthy relationships with God, healthy relationships with others, and healthy relationships with your circumstances. It has the potential to change the way you think and the way you behave. We have control over our thoughts. This is a powerful thought. We have control of our thoughts. We have control over our thought lives. When we're in recovery, when we're in the throes of our recovery, it's hard to believe that we can control our thought life. But I'm here to tell you today that we can be intentional about what we think about. We can be intentional about the things we allow our minds to dwell on. And I want to challenge you as you prepare for our summit, and I hope you'll listen to my session. I want to challenge you to remember and to accept the truth that you can renew your mind. And when we renew our mind, it changes the way we behave. When we transform the way we behave, it works into our recovery. It works into our recovery. Isaiah 26:3 says, you will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you. In my talk, I'm going to talk about triggers, and I'm going to talk about spirals. A trigger is an external stimulation that activates an internal storage of memory in your mind. So if something happens, it triggers you and it takes you back to an earlier time when something happens. And I'm going to teach you how to identify the trigger and to obliterate that thing. And then I'm going to talk about spirals. A spiral is your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that can form vicious feedback, a vicious feedback loop, sending you into a downward emotional spiral. Let me give you an example. An example could be, I'll give you a true example, because I almost had a spiral just before Facebook Live. I forgot to set up my station right here. And so a few minutes before I set up, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have any makeup on, my hair's not done, am I gonna get there on time, am I gonna hit the button, am I gonna be on my own Facebook page versus Celebrate Recovery Facebook page, is anybody gonna show up, that's a spiral. And what I did in that moment, I said, girls, slow down. You have 15 minutes. You have 15 minutes. Set up. Stop the spiral. It's not too late. And if you're late, they'll wait for you. They'll wait for you. I'm going to teach you how to identify and stop those spirals. The writers, Peter and Paul, challenge us to make a choice about the way we live our lives and change the way we think. I'm going to talk about that. When we adjust our thinking, our behavior changes. 2 questions for you. Are you aware of the way you're thinking? Are you aware of your behavior and your reactions? And are you willing to change the way you communicate or connect with God, others, and your circumstances? I want you to know that you have the ability, the power, and the permission to change the way you think. And it will affect every relationship in your life. It will affect the way you respond. It will affect the way you love others. My sister's laughing at me. It will affect the way you think about yourself. Because you're going to remember who you are, not who you were. You're going to remember who you are, not who you were. A daughter of the King, a son of the Most High, a man or a woman who's walking out their recovery, someone who's fit for the kingdom, someone whose thoughts matter, someone whose life matters, someone who has the ability to help others come alongside them in their recovery, someone who has the ability to look back because of who you are and the way you think and the way you behave. You're going to be able to look back and pull someone out of the mire and say, get up. This is my story. Because you change the way you think. You have what it takes. I have what it takes. And listen, when you fall, when you mess up, course correct. Let's just get up and keep moving forward. You know what? These are hard times. And we're in a situation in our world where it's time for us to love one another. It's time for us to hold each other accountable, hold each other's hands, and move forward in unity. We are a ministry of reconciliation, and we have what it takes to change the world. You do. I do. And listen, you may not be a leader. You may not think you're a leader. You may not be a ministry leader or on the national team. But let me tell you what God has done for you. He died for you. And he's placed you in an environment where you are receiving healing, or you can receive healing, so that you can lead someone else out of their pain into recovery, which makes you a leader. It makes you a leader. So thank you so very much. I think my time is up. I love you guys so much, and we'll see you tomorrow at this time. Thanks, guys.